Hi and welcome back to my channel. I'm Tony, and as you know, if you've been following me, I'm building another 1:6 scale full metal tank from Armortek, and it is the wonderful little Hetzer or the Jagdpanzer 38. So today's all about the mock welding. And there's a ton of welding to do. I'm going to hit the front glacis plate to start with, and if you remember last time on the last session, I'd filled in or put in some fillet pieces, and I'd filled it in, and I've subsequently to that I've rubbed everything down, cleaned it all up, and it's ready for starting the welding. So I'll start with the glacis plate and get all that done, but there is a load of work to be done on the roof and all around this tank. So a lot of you asked me to do a bit of a welding session, so I will do that, but I probably won't do it all in real time. I'll do some in real time for you, and then ask Ben to speed it all up as he does so brilliantly. So if you're going to do some welding on this type of scale, or any scale really, but on this particular scale, I recommend that I use a milliput. I go for the superfine white milliput. It's 2 parts, so you get 2 tubes, and you mix these equally together. You don't cut off too much of it, because it goes off, takes about 3 hours to go off really hard, so you have a bit of time to play with it, but do it in small batches. So you cut equal amounts off, you mix them together, and then you roll them out onto a really good clean surface such as this, which is a leftover acrylic from when I did the fillet pieces here. So it's ideal, so you get a bit of a glossy finish to it, and that allows it to roll out. And if it gets a bit sticky, just a little bit of water on it, that just helps you with manipulating it and getting it off the plate. But I'll do all that in real time in a moment. And then all else you're going to need is some sort of general tools, some sort of little modelling tools. These are clay modelling tools, perfect for this type of exercise. So I will reposition the camera now, and we'll get stuck right in. Right, so all ready. So I'm going to take out equal amount of the 2 mixers. Probably going to just cut off about about half an inch to start with. Said you don't want to be cutting off too much of this, because you have got a bit of time to work with it, but you don't want to be working with too much of it, because it'll go off. The thinner it gets, the more likely it's going to go off. So just going to take the other part out, and this one is the hardening part, so just measuring that up against this. Now they do recommend that you wear gloves when you're using this stuff, but I've got barrier cream on my hands. I just find that gloves get in the way, and they get sticky and becomes problematic. So yes, you can wear gloves, but I choose to use barrier cream. It does the job perfectly. So now we've got our 2 parts, so we now just need to, this is the messy bit, need to just get in and start mixing this up. Just try and mix it together as best as possible. It is probably one of the most mundane tasks you're going to do, but it's worth it, because once I didn't do any welding on the Tiger, and I regret that, because I was just starting out, and you know, I was just if you like, nervous about doing it. I've seen it, I've seen people do it, regretted it, and then obviously when I did it on the M26, I'm really pleased with the way that looks, and it really adds you know, some realism to your model. So obviously these are all the things that you do over and above what the kit comes with, and this is what makes this hobby so fascinating, because you personalize every kit. So you know, you could have, you know, 10 tanks, all this exactly the same model, exactly the same kit from Armortek, and when you put them up against each other, they all look so different, because there's, you know, people have put their own personal sort of, you know, touch on them. So that's what I love about this hobby. So if you are into this already, you'll know that. If you're contemplating getting into this hobby, this is something that I recommend that you do. So I'm quite happy with that. It's all nice and it's all softened up. It's quite cold in the garage today, so it takes a bit of time to warm up, and now I'm quite happy with that's mixed how I want it. So what I'm going to do now is just wipe that surface. And don't worry about drying it off, because actually it helps. So what we're going to do now is just tear off the first piece, just a small piece like so, and I'm just going to manipulate that into something that I can then place on the surface of this and roll it out like that. And then you simply start rolling it out, and you want to get a consistent sort of gauge, if you like, and again that's down to you as the individual. I'm going to keep going on this until I feel I've got something that works. We've got to try and get it the same thickness all the way through. Just talk amongst yourselves while I'm doing this. That's what I'm saying. I'm not going to do all of this in real time, because I think it would be super tedious. But I wanted to give you an idea of how it's done. I'm sure I did this when I did the M26, but I'm not sure how much detail I went into. So we're starting to get there, and this is again an exercise where patience comes into play. If you try and do this, if you try and rush this, you'll make a mistake. And you can see even that sort of small piece that we put there has got a decent sort of length on it, and we're still working with it. I'm just going to continue to roll that out until I'm happy. Still a little bit too thick, I think. But we're getting there. What I'll do in a moment, when I've got this to the sort of the thickness that I want, I will reposition the camera, get into the glasses plate and show you the first set of welding that we do. Getting there. As you can see, less is more, as always, as I always say. And you don't want to be doing long lengths, because it becomes awkward to work with, like that is proving to be. Just using both hands now. I think that's about the thickness I want it, because when you use a tool, it does spread it out even more. I think that's about right. So I'd say that's probably around about, in millimeters, probably 2.5 to 3 millimeters, like so. Right, so I'll reposition the camera, and we'll put the first piece of welding on. Right, so we're going to do our first bit of welding, or mock welding I should say, and we're going to target this piece here. Now what I would recommend we do is, you want this to stick, and I just use a tiny little bit of water, just so that it sticks better to the surface. Here's the piece of milliput that we previously rolled out, and I'm just going to manipulate that round. And don't worry too much about trying to make it perfect, because anybody's ever seen any welding, I mean, especially, I'm not talking about coded welding here, I'm talking about this sort of kind of welding, this sometimes field welding, sometimes rushed out in the factory. It's not a perfect thing. So that's that there. I'm just going to trim off some of the excess, which we won't need. That doesn't look like anything like welding, but that's when this is when these tools come into play here. So I'm going to use this tool for a number of ways of manipulating this, getting it into the corners that I want it to go into, like so. And then I'm going to start working up. Just hold that down, sorry, my finger's in the way. Just starting to work up the indentations for the weld. Now I'll bring my hand out of the way in a minute so you can see this. Just going to work along. Again, as I said, patience is a virtue with this. Now this is pliable for about 3 hours, and then you will not be able to work. You probably won't be able to work with it after an hour, but you can continue to play around with it and fine tune it. And when it goes off rock hard. So although it's not, you know, real weld as such, it kind of helps with, you know, if you wanted to. I mean, I've got to start thinking about how I'm going to do the roof, because the roof needs to be removable, but there's definitely a weld seam along the full length of the top of the roof. Now, not quite happy with that. I can continue manipulating that. Sorry, I think my hand's in the way. Just, again, it's nothing, you know, if you're doing this, don't stress too much about, you know, getting it perfect, because, you know, the weld seams on some of these tanks were not perfect, and you want a bit of character in them. So a bit more work to do to that, just to get that to look right. Just taking a tool around the angle. And that's the general gist of it. Just going along, just putting that slot in. I find it very therapeutic. So I might do a little bit more work to that, but that's the general principle of the mock welding. So I'll carry on and we'll do the other two sides, do the bottom piece, the sort of front sort of mud guards here, and then we'll go off and do the glacis plate itself. We'll go on now and we'll do this one. This could be a bit tricky. I'll just trim that. I'm sorry, I'm doing that off camera, but I'm just going to trim that so I've got a bit of a square edge that goes into this part here. Just getting that tool to push that up against the seam. And just turn that. And then we just trim that off. And when we come round and do the underside of this, this will all marry up. So just want to get that pressed into the seam, and now we can start putting the impressions in. And it will want to lift off like that, but that's fine. Just have to push it back in ever so gently. I'm just going to turn the tool round so I can get that weld rotating around that. and slowly progressing along the length of it. Just have to move that up a bit. There we go. I'll have to put another piece in there. So I'll use that piece that I cut off. It'll all blend in. Just changing tools. Need another bit. And that will all blend in. The difference this makes when you paint the model is incredible. Still need a bit more in that. But you know, this is the great thing about this part, is that it is very much down to the user and your preferences. There's no instruction manual for this. I'm hoping you're enjoying this or finding this informative. As I said, you can always fast forward to the bit where Ben speeds the whole thing up. But I just think that I think it's important if I'm building one of these kits, and now I've sort of progressed myself to a little bit more confidence in what I do. I think it's important that we show every part of the build process, and I've said a few times in my comments that yes, this Hetzer is smaller than the Tiger and definitely smaller than the Pershing, but oh, it's absolutely complex, and there's a lot of whatever you're doing on the other ones, you're doing in a sort of a different sort of level of scale. So obviously you're zoomed in quite close to this, so it probably looks bigger than it should, but I think that's about the right scale of weld. I'm now going to go on and do this side, and then we'll do the underside of this. Then we've got some welding to do up the mud guards here and the long seam along the edge of the glasses plate. But I'm going to ask Ben to speed the whole process up for that. Otherwise I think you'd just be falling off your chairs. Right, so that's all the welding done as far as I'm going to go anyway, and I'm quite happy the way it's come out. So what I've done on the roof here, I've put some welding around what will be the MG mount. I put some welding around the lifting lugs here. I put some welding around all the little handles. That for two reasons. One, I think it looks good, and two, that'll also help bond the handle through to the metal, because at the moment it's only just glued in there with some super glue. So this will actually help strengthen that bond. And I put a bit of welding around the track holder here. So that's that. I've also done all the welding on the main hull, which we'll sort of go over in a moment. Now, so the final thing before painting is there's a load of dummy hex nuts to go into the top of this roof section here, and these are just like small 6mm M2.5 gauge hex nuts. I've already put the ones that around the welding in here, so they'll be fine, and these are simply just glued into place. It's got a handful of them just here. These are just simply glued into place because they're just dummies. They don't actually do anything. I think it's just more for detailing. So I'm just going to pop a little bit of glue all the way along this line here, and then just pop these in. And then once these are on and all the welding's set, it'll be time to give this its first coat of paint. So the plan is I'm going to give the whole thing a base coat of the sort of base yellow coat, if you like, the German yellow coat. And then once that's all dried and cured, we'll start with the camo scheme. But I might, in advance of that, I might do the little tools as well. A whole series of tools that have to go onto the tank. So I am really close to the finishing point of this amazing little kit, but the painting is still going to be challenging. I've still got to sort all the electronics out. I've got to do all the syncing of the electronics. Got to work out how to lay out all the components inside the tank hull. I've got some acrylic which I'll cut and use as shells, so there'll be a session on that. And then I guess when it's all painted and I've got the electronics tidied up, it'll be time to take it out for its first big test, and it'll be playing with its his big brothers, the Tiger and the M26. I'm not worried about dressing these. This will just hold these in place. That's just for adding the detail. I mean, it does actually looks pretty good. I think I'm going to run out of nuts. Oh, sorry, little bolts. Kind of glad these don't have to be fixed in. So, last few to go in, and then once all this is set, I'll leave this a relevant period, a good period of time for it to set, and then it's ready for painting. Right, I need to go and find a couple of more fixings. There's one there. So I'll go off and find a couple more fixings and I'll come straight back. So that's it for today's session, all about the welding today, and there was a ton of welding to do. So I used, you remember I cut off about 1/2 inch. I used that, and then I used another 1/2 inch of the same mix. So 1 inch of both gives you enough to do all of the welding on the tank like this, as far as I'm going to go. I mean, you can go on, there's other parts, but I've got a really good reference book that I've used, and I think I've put welds where all the welds should be. And I'm really pleased with the results. And you saw the bit of work I did on the glacis plate and some of the work I did on the roof section itself, but I've also gone ahead and done a long seam either side of the roof. That's not to trap the roof in, that's just to give the impression that there's a weld joint either side of the roof. That roof still comes out because I need to get access to the electronics, but I'm pleased how that's come out, and I can now visualize when this is painted. It's going to look, I hope it's going to look amazing. So I'm just deliberating what the next step is. I think it's either going to be I'm going to paint the whole tank, or I'll do the accessories and the tools so they can get those painted and put aside, ready to go onto the tank when it's complete. And that's it. So, and then after that, we've obviously got the electronics to sort out, and then the whole sort of synchronization, and then we take it out and get some hopefully some great footage of it playing with its bigger brothers. Just want to say, before I sign off, a massive thank you to all of you that have supported me from the very start. I get blown away by your amazing comments and the support I have for my channel, and I'm humbled by the subscription levels. Incredible. I never set out for that. I never thought I'd ever achieve something like that, and it's just thanks to you for following me and supporting my channel. So a massive thank you. If you've liked this particular video, please give me a thumbs up. If you've just joined, please subscribe, because as I said, there's a few more sessions on this particular tank, and if you are thinking about getting into this hobby, and you're looking at Armortek in particular, this particular scale of tank, you know what, I would consider the Hetzer. I'm not sure how many they've got left, but it's been out it's been out a while, and once they're gone, they're gone. I wouldn't be put off by the size of it in comparison to its bigger brothers, because this tank, it's looking amazing. I'm really pleased with it, and I think the shape of it and everything else sets it aside. So if you are contemplating buying one of these, consider the Hetzer, because it is probably one of the cheaper end of the tanks that they offer, and you'll be no less you'll be quite surprised how what an amazing experience it is building one of these. So I'll sign off by saying thanks again for everything. I'm Tony. I love building these kits, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.